So for finishing the planet scene with space, we're gonna paint a really dark color in this background behind the planets. So that's we wanted. This is why the planets were very light. So we're gonna paint a very dark color. I've put water in this in the watercolors, but I want to make sure these are nice and wet. And we may be using a combination of maybe purple, blue, and maybe some black. For the space, you also might want to have maybe some plastic wrap, salt, and using paper towels for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take water and I'm going to get the paper wet behind the planets. We want to avoid touching the planets, like touching the colors together. The colors. So this you want to carefully put an outline of water around the planet without touching the color, and it's okay if you keep some white in between. Okay, so actually, we can look at our example where we kept some white around it. Once, if you have two dark colors together, it'll start to look like the same thing. So you want to make sure these are kept separate. And then I'm going to go ahead and start adding, just adding in between where I added the water. And also, if I didn't add enough water, add water. And we want to make sure this paper is very wet. And again, try not to touch the planets with the water. We'll creep in later with it and get it go darker. So I had blue, now I'm going to use purple and go darker even. I might stay with mainly purple and blue because when I use black, I kind of feel like it gets almost a little bit too dark. But I will use some black. Maybe just make it very dark around the edges. So this is really cool when it starts to kind of bleed together and kind of mix on its own, and it makes those really interesting effects where the paint looks swirly and it kind of does that on its own, which is, uh, the watercolors are really cool for that reason. So I'm really feeling, I'm really liking the way that this is looking. I'll keep adding a little bit more purple to try to continue getting this darker. Okay, good. So yeah, maybe yeah, this is pretty good. And the paper is very wet. It's a good thing that we use the watercolor paper. I'm gonna put salt on. If you have a shaker, that's good. A shaker is probably better than a salt shaker. It's a good thing. So that'll make an effect like how here, how it looks kind of, uh, almost like snow is on it. So that's an interesting effect. Another effect is using saran wrap. So maybe I'll go ahead and use saran wrap. Maybe I'll only use saran wrap on part of it. And that'll create an interesting effect. Oh, it kind of went onto the planets there. So I'm going to put that on there and I'm going to let it dry. And then I'll come in on this side with paper towels, kind of wadded up paper towels, and I'll take away a little bit of some of the color here and kind of it kind of makes it look, blotting it off kind of makes it look a little bit cloudy. It makes it lighter and it also makes it look cloudy. There. And so now this looks good. Now I'm going to let this dry, and then after it dries I can take the tape off and then it'll be done. So I always suggest people to look at ideas, whether they're in books or online, for the art type of art that they're working on, for the projects that they're working on. So I included 2 links in the direction sheet. I would I think it would be a great idea to look at these. The first one is from a blog called Hands On as We Grow, and it's 5 beginner watercolor techniques for kids. I just found these in just a general online search. So this one is actually, it shows a step-by-step breakdown of the painting that we did of the field of flowers. So as you can see, when you look at this, it'll show you exactly what to do, and it describes what's happening as well. So this is really great to look at. The second one is from another blog called the Artsy Craftsy Mom, and it's 20 easy watercolor projects for kids. And here are all the projects. They're really great. So please take a look at this one. Here are some of the examples, just some of them. These are really, really great. The other thing that I think is really cool is just doing a general search for these are the things that we did: watercolor paintings for kids. We did wax resist using crayons. We used salt, and we also used plastic wrap. And just type all that in and click images. And as you can see, the first thing that I found was interesting is this is something that gave some ideas for using other, for experimenting in other ways with watercolor. So you could try using lemon juice, rubbing alcohol, also using wax paper. We use plastic wrap, oil pastels, even trying using rice. We have salt, but if you try using like rock salt from outside or kosher salt, that's going to look even different. Things from nature, such as leaves, rubber cement. And if you go down in here, you can see some of the experimenting done, blowing paint through a straw, painting a paper and folding it in half and creating kind of a mirror image like these. It looks like butterfly wings. These look like the planets that we did, almost exactly the same thing, except that we painted a dark background around ours to be space. So if you look at these, just kind of look through some of these, there's a lot of different things that can be done with the properties of watercolor, and then experimenting with other things in it. Rubbing alcohol, lemon juice, salt. This one looks like wax resist. This is really beautiful. The jellyfish, it looks like. So if you click on it, it might show similar things to that. Here's the painting that we did too. Those will show up. So some of these will show up again with searches. These flowers look great. So just drawing flowers and then painting swirly colors over it. Fish, a scene from the ocean. This is really cool looking. A wax resist, a spider web. That's a really great idea. So it looks like the spider web was just drawn and then painted over. And then after the paint dries, using a marker to draw a spider on top of that. This looks like made with, oh, that looks like that's with plastic wrap. That looks a lot like ice, actually. That looks like ice. Oh, that looks interesting. Oh, so that's painting and then tearing the painting and making kind of a collage out of the painting. Well, that looks really cool. That's also something, maybe that's something that you would like to do. So all of these are also ideas for projects for you to do to experiment with. This tree looks like that was done with tape, similar to the buildings. So instead of using tape, tearing the tape so that it's irregular shaped, so it looks more like a tree, and then putting those on, painting the background, letting it dry, taking off the tape, and then drawing in the detail. The same process as the buildings, but you're making a completely different picture. That's interesting. So painting shapes and then drawing inside of it, letting them dry. So this is just painting like an oval, a triangle, and then after it dries, drawing shapes inside of it and turning that into trees. Same with leaves here. Very cool. This is a simple painting where I'm pretty sure these are painted first. These shapes are painted first and then it's drawn afterwards. Some just little detail that turns these all into trees. Very cool. Using plastic wrap again. That looks like scales on a dragon or snake. So these are, yeah, I'm getting caught up looking in these, but you can make your own, you can come up with ideas just drawing shapes all of a sudden and then filling in different areas with color. Okay, so thank you for looking at those with me, and we'll just run through real quick. So we had, we did, the 5 fantastic paintings were the rainbow in the rain and using value, which means darker, medium, light, and then light, medium, darker, a little bit, keeping the sky lighter. But this makes it look like it has distance, like that this area right here is kind of farther away, which is what we wanted. The darker area looks closer. And then we had the scene, the flower field, feel the flowers, using wax resist for the grass, and a wash in the sky, a lot of water, using paper towels to kind of make cloud shapes, using some salt, maybe a little of plastic wrap was used, and bright colors for the flowers. Now the polar bear on her iceberg, so we used, that was using a lot of water, almost more water than paint, a lot of water, and then some little tiny amounts of paint, and letting the paint move by itself, covering with plastic wrap, some salt, plastic wrap, and the plastic wrap is what gave the design texture that makes it look like ice. It does look like ice, actually, and that was created from the plastic wrap drying on it. So if you put the plastic wrap on it, it'll grab up inside and look like that, and you have to wait. You really have to let that dry completely before you take it off, and then cut out the polar bear and put her, somewhere where she can roam around and explore. And then the city scene, using the tape this is using the watercolor paper, the thick paper, and using tape, and then
You want the sky to be dark, and the buildings will stand out because they're white, because they look a lot different than the dark sky. And then so really wait for this to dry before you take the paint off. I'm sorry, the tape off, and then come in with a ballpoint pen, a very fine marker or pen, and draw the details, the windows and roof details. And number 5 for fantastic paintings is the planets. And it's okay to leave a white circle around, because uh, that'll create a difference between the space and the planet. And use a lot of water for both. But start with the planets. Use a lot of water, and if you make it a little bit darker on the inside and lighter on the outside, it creates where it looks round. And when you paint the planets first, let them dry completely, and then the background. Make sure that this is dry because it'll run together. And then the background, using salt and paper towels and maybe some plastic wrap. Um, okay, and try out some new things that you find online, or some new examples that you might find and that you think are cool. Play around with it, and have fun. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great time with your watercolor painting projects. And we would love to see them too. Thank you. Bye bye.